You're listening to the Purdy Girl Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Kelly Purdy. My mission is to connect military spouses, fiancés, girlfriends, and booty calls worldwide. So let's do this. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to Purdy Girl Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Joan Kelly Purdy, and today I have a quick little episode for you. I like to keep these Wednesday podcasts just short and sweet and to the point. I like Monday's episodes to be a little longer since they are interviews, and I like to just have that mixture for you. It seems like you guys are liking those, by the way, which is a lot of fun. I'm loving connecting with you and learning about you. I've had some of you reach out to me saying you want to come on. I just think that's so much fun, and I want to keep going with that. It seems that the debt-free journey episodes have been very popular, which I love. But I'm willing to talk about pretty much whatever. I would love to talk more about fitness, nutrition, mental health, motherhood, balance with being a mama and working. And of course, we can talk about the military lifestyle, since that's kind of what my platform is all about. I know I don't really tap into that though all too much, and that's kind of the point. If your significant other is a part of the military, you understand how much of your life revolves around it. And so I wanted this podcast to be for that individual that needs just a taste of the life outside of the military. I want this podcast to be a reminder of who you are, especially if you're military. Well, don't get me wrong. I take a lot of pride in being a military spouse, but I think it's important to remember that it's a part of my life and it's not my entire life. And I want to take that same mentality into motherhood as well. I can already feel myself being completely engulfed in all things baby. And I think that's fine. That's just the season that I'm in, and I'm happy and I'm excited about it. But at the end of the day, I need to remember who I am. Ashley Kelly Purdy. Who am I? What do I like? What am I passionate about? What am I working on? How do I show up for myself? And that's really what I wanted to talk about today is how are you showing up for yourself? It's a tricky balance, and I think some days will be more balanced than others, but that's just life. It's a decision. Okay, in my opinion, it's a decision that you make early on. I made that decision about the military early on, that I wasn't just Bennett's wife. I'm not just a military spouse. I don't wear his rank on my sleeve or get any fulfillment from his accomplishments. I think that's important. I'm proud of him and those accomplishments, but it has to be separate. I see so many women get lost in this lifestyle, and that's just not how I choose to live my life. It kind of freaks me out a little bit, to be honest. So when people ask me if this podcast is just for military spouses, I always say yes, but it's also for everyone, because I think we might all have that thing that we're trying to not get lost in, whether that's school or your church or your career, motherhood, your husband's career, whatever it is. I think many of us could use that reminder of who am I? What do I like? How am I showing up for myself? How am I actively working on staying true to who I am? And that's my mission, really, is to be that reminder for you and to be that girlfriend that's hey, don't forget who you are, okay? Being a mama is just a part of who you are. Being a military spouse is just a part of who you are. Being an entrepreneur is just a part of who you are. You get it. We have to remember to tap into our whole self, or else that's when we get lost. I had a friend relate it to a pie, and I always think of that now. It was like 5 years ago. I was totally lost in fitness and my eating disorder, which, I mean, that might sound weird, but some of you might get it, some of you might not. Fitness was my entire pie. Like, I only cared about getting my workouts in, prepping my food, and I had like little to no energy for anything else. Like, when I think about it, it's so depressing. I mean, I wasn't making time for girlfriends, my relationship, or any other hobbies. I barely worked. Like, all my energy was going towards fitness. And I was just totally out of balance. And I was stuck and I was just lost. And not to mention, pretty unhappy. I mean, like, I was happy ish, but I knew I was missing something. It was very, very off. It's not a way to live. I think it's good to have focus for like a certain amount of time. Like, if you have a really intense goal, I think that's great. But like, it was becoming an obsession, and it was just my entire pie. Like, it wasn't split up into any other section. That's the only way I know how to explain it. So now, like, I mean, I've done a lot of work around that. I didn't even know what I wanted my life to look like if I wasn't obsessed with fitness, So it's like, it's taken a lot of work, and I was kind of floundering for a little while, but now I would say fitness is probably like 15 to 20% of my pie, where, before it was like the whole thing. So now, I also try to tap into things like this podcast and connecting with you guys, and self-development, and my marriage, and book club, and travel, and nature, and crafting, and my family and girlfriends. It's just it's just a much richer and balanced and happier life. And I feel it too. And who knows, I might look back on this time and see ways I could have been better, or whatever. I'm in no way saying like, oh, hey, look at me, like I figured it out. Like, no, I'm just saying, compared to back then when I wasn't balanced and I totally lost myself in fitness, this feels so much better. So I guess I'm just saying that I am really aware of not getting lost in like my husband's career, being a military spouse, and I don't want to get lost in motherhood either. Like, I'm so excited to be a mom, but like, I really want to remember who I am as well. So I just want to ask you guys, how are you showing up for yourself today? Maybe you're listening to this and you're running errands, you're going to the grocery store, taking your kids to piano lessons, or baking cookies for the neighbors, or heading into work, whatever. Like, those are all great, amazing things. Like, I love those too. I mean, it just fills my cup. I love that kind of stuff. But what are you going to do just for you? How can you tap into who you are? Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's taking a nice long bath with salts and candles and like your favorite wine and chocolate. maybe it's signing up for that class you've been wanting to take, or maybe it's taking an hour alone in your room and reading like a super smutty book. Whatever it is, you have to show up for yourself, and you have to make that decision. It doesn't mean you're selfish. We have to understand that, right? It really does not mean that we're selfish if we need some time for ourselves. It means you're brave, and it means that you prioritize taking care of yourself so that you can take care of others. I'd love to know how you're going to show up for yourself this week. Feel free to message me anytime on Instagram or in the Purdy Girl Facebook group, which, if you're not a part of, please let me know. I will get you in. And speaking of which, I had a gal reach out to me, and she suggested maybe having like some talking points weekly for the book club, which I thought was a really good idea. I'm thinking Sundays I might do that and we can discuss the book. So like for this month, we are reading the book, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. And it's a shorter book too. So like, don't be intimidated by it. And even if you don't read it, like you can still totally chime in with like the discussions. I was thinking that the question for this week could be something like, what patterns do you see in yourself? Because in the beginning of the book, spoiler alert, just kidding. It's not really a spoiler because it's like a self-development book, but in the beginning of the book, she talks about some patterns that she has. And I don't know, I just like to do a little self-reflection, so why the heck not? Let's do it. I'm going to try to commit to that every Sunday. Okay. So this Sunday, the question I'll probably post is, what patterns do you see in yourself? And I'll give an example like what she talks about in the book. Anyway, the last thing that I wanted to mention before I go today is that Monday's episode is my 100th episode. Like, holy shnikes. I'm surprised I'm just kept going this whole time. I love it. I really love it. So what I was thinking is to just do like a little giveaway of like $100 for the 100th episode. And how you can win is to make sure you're following me on Instagram at Ashley Kelly Purdy. And I'm going to do a post later today where you can tag a friend and tell him or her your favorite podcast episode and why. And then I'll choose a winner. I hope that's not too like, I don't know, fishing for like compliments or something. I don't know. I just want this podcast to grow. I want it to grow authentically. And the best way to do that is through word of mouth. So it helps me when you guys share this podcast and tell people about it. So I'd love if you could help me out with that. That would be awesome. And then I will announce the winner on the 100th episode on Monday. Okay? Cool. I'm pumped about it. Thank you guys so much for all the love and support and 5-star reviews. I hope you have a great Wednesday, and I will chat with you on Monday. And don't forget to show up for yourself. Okay? Bye. Thank you for listening to Purdy Girl Podcast. If you have a second, please rate and review and share this podcast with somebody you think would love it. See you next week.